Rejection is Revolution: How Black Women Are Turning Corporate Barriers into Billion-Dollar Breakthroughs. Welcome. What if I told you that some of the most significant innovations in America today are emerging not from privilege and access, but from rejection and exclusion? What if the very systems designed to hold people back are inadvertently fueling the next generation of world changing businesses? I recently had the extraordinary privilege of sitting down with Twania Baxter, whose groundbreaking research is reshaping how we understand entrepreneurship, innovation, and power in America. Twana isn't just documenting trends, she's capturing a revolution in real time, one that challenges everything we think we know about how success happens in this country. Her work illuminating the surge of Black women entrepreneurs isn't just important, it's transformative, offering a blueprint for how marginalization can become mobilization, how rejection can spark revolution. Today, I want to share something counterintuitive, something that might fundamentally challenge how you think about barriers and breakthroughs. Here it is. Black women are not only leading an unprecedented surge in entrepreneurship across America, but this remarkable growth is directly linked to and perhaps even fueled by the very systemic barriers and setbacks they've faced in corporate spaces. Let that sink in for a moment. The very obstacles meant to limit opportunity, things like the dismantling of DEI programs, higher lending rejection rates, and persistent wage gaps, are becoming catalysts for one of the most significant entrepreneurial movements of our time. This isn't just resilience, this is revolution. When Navigate Maternity founder Kimberly Jackson kept encountering statistics about Black maternal mortality being 4 times higher than for white women, she didn't just feel outrage, she felt opportunity. After pitching her maternal health wearable technology to 47 investors and receiving 47 rejections, she didn't retreat. She recognized something profound. The very blindness that prevented investors from seeing the value in her solution was the same blindness causing the healthcare gap she was trying to solve. The rejection wasn't personal, she told Twana. It was systemic, and systems can be rebuilt. Kimberly leveraged her background as a biomedical engineer and her lived experience as a Black mother to create what those 47 investors couldn't imagine: an FDA cleared wearable specifically designed to monitor high risk pregnancies with particular attention to conditions that disproportionately affect Black women. Today, Navigate Maternity has partnerships with 5 major hospital systems. Their technology has been used in monitoring over 3,000 high risk pregnancies, with data showing a 62% reduction in emergency interventions. Those 47 rejections didn't end her journey, they clarified it. This pattern repeats across industries. When Alana Eve couldn't find fashion that honored both her body and her values, she didn't just complain about the industry, she transformed it. Her sustainable fashion brand now generates $4.2 million annually while maintaining radical commitments to size inclusivity and environmental sustainability. I was told repeatedly that you couldn't have size inclusive clothing that was also sustainable and profitable, she shared with Twana. But that's only true if you accept the limitations of existing supply chains and design philosophies. I didn't. By prioritizing sizes from XS to 3X, using recycled and compostable materials, and boldly highlighting cultural heritage in her designs, Alana didn't just find a market niche, she created a market revolution. Her customer base is fiercely loyal with 78% repeat purchase rates. because they're not just buying clothes, they're buying confirmation that their bodies and values deserve to exist together in the marketplace. Then there's Maya Johnson of Oak Theory, a UX UI design agency specializing in accessible digital experiences. After being told repeatedly that accessibility was a nice to have rather than a business imperative, Maya decided to prove the business case herself. I kept hearing that inclusive design was too expensive, too niche, too idealistic, she told Twana. But I knew from my community organizing work that exclusion is actually what's expensive. In lost customers, lost talent, lost innovation. Oak Theory now works with Fortune 500 companies, showing them that accessible design isn't just morally right, it's financially smart. Their clients see an average 23% increase in user engagement and a 17% increase in conversion rates after implementing Oak Theory's accessibility recommendations. What these stories reveal is something profound. When conventional paths to success are blocked, innovation doesn't just survive, it thrives. These entrepreneurs aren't succeeding despite the barriers they've faced. In many ways, they're succeeding because of them. The challenges have forced them to think differently, to identify overlooked opportunities, and to create solutions that serve communities traditional businesses have ignored. This pattern reveals something we rarely acknowledge in our conversations about success and achievement. Sometimes our greatest innovations emerge not from privilege and access, but from necessity and exclusion. The data backs this up. Black women owned businesses are growing at 4.8 times the rate of all businesses nationally. They're generating over $60 billion annually in revenue, and they're doing this while receiving less than 1% of venture capital funding. These aren't just impressive statistics, they're evidence of an economic transformation hiding in plain sight, one that challenges our fundamental assumptions about how innovation happens and who gets to lead it. As Twana's research shows, these entrepreneurs are creating entirely new pathways that challenge how business has traditionally been done. They're not just finding ways around barriers, they're making those barriers irrelevant by building entirely new systems. This isn't just about entrepreneurship, it's about power. It's about who gets to define what problems matter, what solutions count, and whose needs deserve to be centered in our economy. For too long, we've accepted a narrative that says innovation flows from privilege, from access to capital, from elite networks, from prestigious institutions. But these entrepreneurs are writing a different story. They're showing us that sometimes the most powerful innovations come from those who have been systematically excluded from existing systems. They're proving that rejection can be revolutionary. When Navigate Maternity couldn't get those 47 investors to see the value in addressing maternal health disparities, they didn't just find another way to build their business. They created a solution that those investors couldn't even imagine because they hadn't lived with the problem. When Alana Eve was told that sustainable fashion couldn't be size inclusive and profitable, she didn't just prove the critics wrong. She created an entirely new business model that has now become a blueprint for the industry. When Oak Theory was told that accessibility was too niche to build a business around, they didn't just find clients who disagreed. They demonstrated that accessibility is actually a pathway to broader market reach and deeper customer loyalty. This is the power of what I call rejection as revolution. It's what happens when people take the very barriers meant to exclude them and transform them into foundations for something new, something better, something that might not have existed if the path had been smooth from the start. So, what does this mean for you? If you're someone who has faced barriers, whether because of your race, your gender, your background, or any other aspect of your identity, I want you to consider, what if those barriers aren't just obstacles to overcome? What if they're invitations to innovation? What if they're not just blocking your path, but directing you toward a better one? And if you're someone who hasn't faced these specific barriers, I want you to consider, what innovations are you missing because you haven't had to solve the problems that exclusion creates? What solutions might emerge if you center the experiences of those who have been systematically marginalized in your industry? Because here's the truth: we cannot afford to waste the innovative potential of any human being. The challenges we face as a society, from climate change to healthcare disparities to technological disruption, are too complex and too urgent to solve with limited perspectives. The entrepreneurs in Twana's research aren't just building businesses, they're building blueprints for how rejection can become revolution. They're showing us that sometimes the most powerful response to exclusion isn't fighting harder for inclusion, it's creating something new entirely, something that renders the old barriers irrelevant. So I challenge you today: look at the barriers you faced or the barriers others face in your industry. Ask yourself, what opportunities might be hiding within those challenges? What innovations might emerge if we saw rejection not as a roadblock, but as a redirection towards something better? Because that's the lesson these revolutionary entrepreneurs teach us. Sometimes the most disruptive innovations don't come from having every door open for you. They come from having the courage, the creativity, and the conviction to build new doors entirely. Thank you